The Dandy's World community is creative, and while this is usually considered a good thing, the Dandy's World community never fails to make a good idea and execute it horribly. Distractors were a great idea made by the community and actually not the developers. But the developers did, I guess, like the idea and decided to adjust some of the tunes to fit the distractor rule. Louie, Goop, Pebble, Cole, Sprout, and Tisha, even though Tisha is an all-rounder so people don't use her for distraction a lot, are all examples of distractor tunes because they have high stamina and or movement speed, and maybe low stealth, but most of them have 3-star or so. Release speed is what people focus on for distraction. Distractors have the job of gathering up all the Twisteds and keeping them occupied chasing them so the other tunes can extract machines safely without any problems. They usually outwalk the Twisteds if they have the right trinkets. As you can tell, Distractors have a huge responsibility of making sure no tune gets hurt except maybe themselves. So if everything goes to plan, people can play forever until they have to go because there's no issues. You'd be wrong. Things happen, and what happens to the Distractors is just sad. Distractors have a huge responsibility to not just keep others safe, but also themselves. They're human, not robots. Distractors can die, disconnect, or have to go. While a small portion of people understand, the majority don't. Pebble messed up our game. Why would you join if you knew you would mess up? However, this just happens when the distractor dies. It's a completely different story when it's another tune that dies. Before this topic starts, let's note an important detail. Most distractors such as V, Glisten, and Brightney have horrible stealth, and other tunes can have high stealth but horrible movement speed. It's also important to note that tunes either have the same amount of or less stealth than distractors. This is the main reason distractors tell you where they'll distract or tell you to stay away from them. Of course, some people just don't listen. There's only 3 things that can happen when a tune gets near the distractor. 1. If you're lucky, the Twisteds won't see you and neither will the distractor and you can get away. But this usually isn't the case. 2. Going near the distractor, high stealth or not, can panic the distractor and cause them to turn away or around, or go in another direction to save you, because you just couldn't listen, could you? Which could get the distractor hit, or maybe even get them killed. And 3. The Twisteds go after you, and the distractor goes after you to try and get them back. This usually results in you or the distractor getting hit, but here's the sad thing. The distractor usually always gets blamed for any or every death. If a tune dies, some will be understanding, but most will see the distractor grief them. Not even this. Not all people who have a distractor tune want to distract. Some want mastery and some really do want to do some machines. However, it's really disappointing that whenever a distractor tune tries to do this, they'll most likely get forced into the distractor role or get griefed because they didn't want to distract. Each one is horrible things to do to somebody, and this can cause the player to not even want to play Dandy's World anymore just because you couldn't distract yourself. If there's a distractor tune inside your run and they don't want to distract, be a distractor yourself. Because you being a distractor is way better than you purposely making someone feel bad because they don't want to do something you want them to do. It's also rude to try and force the role on them. You can't decide what other people do in the game. So saying all these things like you hope the distractor dies just because they don't want to distract is extremely disrespectful, and I think it even is against the guidelines of Dandy's World. Moving on. People might go into my comment section and say that not all distractors are saints, and I agree. Some distractors are relatively bad. Some distractors are quote-unquote bad at it because they probably weren't distracting in the area you wanted them to distract in. But mainly what people talk about when they say that there's a bad distractor is when the distractor leads Twisteds to people that make the distractor mad, which is aka griefing, and it's on purpose. However, in my entire time of playing Dandy's World, I've never seen a distractor like that. Distractors are usually very kind, and they get frustrated sometimes when people don't listen to them. And the distractors also don't have a lot of videos on them, which is why I'm making this. We need to appreciate that distractors are here more because their job is actually very difficult. To save yourself and also save others is a very difficult job. It's not just extracting a machine and pressing a couple buttons and then running away. You're keeping the Twistics occupied and focused on you so your team is safe. That's a huge responsibility and a huge job, and distractors need more recognition for what they do. And I cannot stress this enough. What happens to the distractors if they don't want to distract, or if people die, or if the distractor dies, is very stupid. So please, if you play Dandy's World and there's a distractor in your run, tell the distractor thank you and say that you appreciate them being there. Trust me, it will really, really make their day.